Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. And before we get on to today's puzzle, just a couple of bits of admin I wanted to mention. Mark has recorded a solve of today's independent cryptic crossword. So those of you who follow the channel for the crossword content, that will probably go live morning time tomorrow, UK time. So look out for that. And for the rest of you who watch the channel for the Sudoku and the puzzles, there will be a second video out tomorrow evening UK time as usual. So on days where we do a crossword video, we do try to make sure we also do a Sudoku video as well. We keep both sets of people happy. Some of you watch both, but we know a lot of you are just polarized in one direction or the other. Now you can see if you look at the screen that this Sudoku has an O and an E in it, which in this case stand for odd and even. The circular digits have to be odd numbers. The square digits or square cells have to be even digits. So fabulous design. This comes from Sam Cappleman-Lynes, who is a member of the UK Sudoku team. Absolutely brilliant solver. But it's become apparent to me from working with Sam over the last few months, he's also, in my opinion, one of the best Sudoku setters working today. His puzzles are really quite something. I often have the sense as I'm solving his puzzles that, I'm working with a higher mind. I'm sort of being schooled a bit. So I suspect this puzzle will be a good solve. If you want to try it, do click on the link under the video. That'll take you to our web application where you should be able to have a go. But just on the theme of odd even Sudoku, and just to sort of give you a heads up, there's going to be another solve by me which I recorded a few weeks ago of Christoph Seeliger's odd even killer Sudoku, which is a brutally brilliant and possibly difficult puzzle. It's a very, very long video, so I've been holding it back, looking for an opportunity to use it. But I think given that we're looking at odd even today, it'll probably appear sometime soon. So if you like hard killer Sudokus, I can promise you you're going to be happy. And with that, let me have a look at this puzzle. Now, odd even Sudoku is a variant I often think I should be quite good at, but I don't do myself justice on these puzzles. So I'm going to start off where it looks easy. That must be a 1, 3 or a 6 just to complete this box look. 6, and that there, that must be 3, 4 and 8 by symmetry. So 8. Okay, well look, there's a 2 there, and there's 3 more even digits in that column in the yellow squares. So that one can't possibly be a 4 or an 8, that must be a 3. And let's put the 3 in. See, so those 3 must be 1, 5 and 7, which I'm going to label that. Sometimes when that one can't be a 1 either, because if there's a 1 there. When you're solving these puzzles with a classic Sudoku, those of you who are familiar with my technique, you'll know that I'd be immediately focused on sort of filling in when a number can only go in 2 positions in a 3 by 3 box. I often find with variations like this one that it's better not to start immediately like that, but to try and use the geometry of the grid a little bit and see if there's any easy wins. So if we look at this column, for example, that square now is even, and as those 3 squares are also even, I know these 3 squares are odd, and therefore they are 3, 5 and 9. And there's a 5 and a 9 there. So it's things like this that I'm on the lookout for. There must be a 3 in one of these 2 squares now. So I'm contradicting myself by going back to Snyder notation. 2, 4 here. So these squares, which are even, must be 6 and 8. But no, I was about to say something daft, so I won't say it. 7, 2, 4, 7. Obviously these 3 squares and this one create a set in column 6 there. Ah, but there's something lovely. There is something lovely. Let's look at these 2 squares. So 5 and 7. So these 3 circled squares we know are going to be 1, 3 and 9 in some order. That one's not a 3. But the important thing that I noticed about this column is not that these were all odd digits, it was that square. Now that square must be an even digit, and therefore it matches up, look, with those squares which are also even digits. So actually we know these squares must all be odd. And therefore, I'm just going to notate that because I've noticed something else, I think. So now look, we can do the same thing again. Those squares now in column 4 are all odd digits. So these must be even. And I'm sure you've all spotted it, but if they must be even, they've got to be 4, 6 and 8 because we've got a 2 at the bottom. There's a 4 there. So that one has to be a 4. We get 6, that must be a 6, that must be an 8. And it's things like this that makes Sam such a brilliant setter. I mean, that was just, I mean, it's there in front of us, but it's just so well done. It really is superb setting. So we've got 4s now here, look. So that must be a 4. It's the only place a 4 can go in that. Those 3 squares. That must be a 4, that must be an 8. 6, 2, 6. These 3 squares here must be 1, 3 and 9, just to complete the row. Let's just see if we can get anything off the back of that. 3, 9. Maybe I should label these ones as well. So that's going to be 2, 6 and 8. That one's not 2 because there's a 2 here. Ah, and this one isn't 6 because there's a 6 here. So that one is 8, which gives us a 2, 6 pair there. 2. I'm sure that there are more efficient ways of doing this, but I do really like using the geometry of the grid, and that's why I'm sort of trying to do that. This square obviously has to be a 6 because we've already got our odd digits catered for in this column. So 6s must be like that. These squares now must be 2, 4 and 8. So that one at the top's got to be a 4 because there's a 2 and an 8 in the row already. So these 2 are 2 and 8 in some order. Now we've got 2, 8 and 2, 6 here. So the 4 in this row must be in one of those 2 squares, and there's a 4 here, so that's going to be the 4. This square must be 2, 6 or 8. I think I can see which way round that goes. That must be 2, 6 and 8 as well, but obviously I can get rid of the 2 from that one. 2, 6, 8. 3, 7, 9, 1. That square's restricted because that sees a 3 and a 7. We know it's odd, and it sees a 5, so that can only be a 1 or a 9. So there's a 1, 9 pair now in row 3 there. Let's check the rest of this row then. So we need 2, 5, 6 and 7. So obviously there must be a 7 in one of those 2 squares, and there's 6s there as well. So there's a 6, 7 pair now in this row. Those 2 squares must be 2 and 5 to complete the row. There's a 2 in one of those. So actually get a bit more progress. That must be 2 and 5 in that order. this square must be odd and can't be a 7 or a 5, so this is a 1, 3 or a 9. This square is a 1, 3 or a 9, and it sees a 3 and a 9, so that one must be a 1, that's a 7, that can't be a 3 anymore, that must be a 5, that's a 9, that's a 1, that's a 2, that must be a 7, that must be a 6 to complete that row, neither of those is a 1, that one is not a 1 either. It's not a 1. 5, that's not a 5. And it's, that must be a 1 in fact. That was me being slow as usual. Must be a 5 because of the 9 here. So this square can't be a 5. And these squares in fact are 3, 7 and 9. I don't quite know how to resolve those yet. 7, 9, 6. This must be 1, 3 and 9. So that must be a 1 or a 3 into that square. This must be a 3 or a 9 into that square. 9 here. Now we know all of these squares are odd. And there's a 1 or a 9 here and a 5 here, so there must be a 3 and a 7 in these 3 yellow squares. So that square can't possibly be a 3, that must be a 9. Well, that's a 3, that's a 9, that's a 3, that's a 1. Now that's a 1 by simple Sudoku. Or that's a 3, that's a 9. That must be a 7. That must be a 3, that must be a 9. There cannot be any 9s along here anymore. There can't be 3s in those two either. I mean, how clever is this? I mean, it's just absurd. It's absurd that you can construct puzzles this clever. It's just, it makes me a bit sort of upset with myself because, you know, it's just so... That must be a 3 now. It throws my own little brain into stark relief, I think. Now, I need a 1 and a 7 into those squares, so that must be a 9. That must be a 7, that must be a 1. 1, 1, 1, 2, 6. These two have got to be even, so they are 4 and 8. I can't resolve those. Okay, we'll come back to that in a sec. These two squares have got to be 5 and 9, I think. So that is resolvable. 9, 5, 6, 7. So this should be 2, 3 and 8. So that square can't be a 2 or an 8. That must be a 3 because it's odd. Therefore that's the 8, that's the 2. This 3 resolves the 3 and the 1 at the bottom. That resolves the 1 and the 7. That resolves the 7 and the 6. The 8 here is resolved because there's a 2 up there now. Gives us 2, 6 here. 8, 2, 6. There must be an 8 in one of these two squares. So this one must be a 4. That must be an 8. And I think obviously we've solved it now because it's not going to be able to hold out too much longer. That 6 is going to be important because that gets us into the left hand side of the grid, look. So that resolves the 6 and the 8 here, and that resolves the 6 and the 2. Check, looks good. What a puzzle, just gorgeous. And I'm pleased actually that I didn't just plough in with pencil marking. So let me know what you thought. We have a number of the world's best puzzle setters who watch this channel, so I'd be very interested to hear from you guys whether or not you agree with me. I thought that was very, very clever indeed. And if you enjoyed the video, please think about subscribing if you're not subscribed as already. We really appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up. Let's kick this YouTube algorithm a bit harder. And we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.